Hey guys, welcome back to Clockwork and Noodles for another breakdown on Blue Period. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Very shortly I'm going to be releasing my end of season review for fall 2021. What are my top 3 anime of this season? How am I crowning the season? What are my final thoughts? What am I breaking down on the channel next season? Because next season is going to be a season all about two halves. We've got the big return of a lot of season 2's very big massive titans, anime legends coming our way, but then we've also got a lot of small anime coming our way which is original, and there's a lot of titles there that I actually have a bit of interest in. I can't wait to break down that video for you guys and talk to you guys about what is coming our way. There's a Discord channel too for you to get notifications whenever videos go up on the channel. Let's jump back into Blue Period because we ended on a Yaguchi who did not look very good. He looked awful. He was on the floor. It's even worse than I initially thought it was because Takahashi ends up being mistaken for Mori, and this shows you how bad his eyesight has gotten. Looked a little bit delusional at points. It looks like he was hallucinating. I am insistent that I think it is down to stress, a lack of sleep, the eye strain. I initially said it could be eye strain on the eyesight. He does actually pick up glasses this week, let alone make him look really cute. I think that might be a thing, that he actually has strained his eyesight and he maybe does need them for close-up work. Adore the fact that Maki tries to help Yaguchi up the staircase, which is different for her. We've already had a big arc with her looking at a friend who got sick and initially didn't know if she felt bad or not, and it was quite a bit of a grey zone with her. It's also showing us how strong she is. She's able to lift 2 sets the amount of weight up the staircase as well. It's nice to see her this week actually debating, showing that I do care. I care as an artist. I understand from my point of view how serious it is to make art and how frustrating at times it is to make art. It's nice to see Maki this week in a different light. I can imagine in the original material as well that this scene is a lot slower and Maki herself has a bit more character building, but Maki is quite a cool character. I would like to know a bit more about them. The theme I thought was oddly coincidental because last week's episode was all about being bare, looking at yourself without the clothes, sole component of yourself. We have a life model, and this is also odd for me because this week for me personally has centered around modeling and life modeling as well. I also watched Good Mythical Morning, and if you're a Good Mythical Morning fan, hello, how are you? Did you also notice the fact that they also drew a life model? Creepy, weird coincidences this week for me. We do get a little peek at the other side of the classmates we haven't seen for a while, the people who didn't make it to the second exam. The reality of having to do the retakes. I think I've mentioned during my breakdowns that if he did fail, he'd at least retake it another year, or there's the ability to retake these exams, try as many times as you had the money for. They do touch upon this with one of the characters, stating that they've tried a few times. I think this is going to be their 4th time trying, and yeah, they've got a part-time job. They're able to support themselves, also have the money at the same time. But we do see that it really does take a lot out of you. You're chasing something that isn't guaranteed. You're never going to guarantee to get through. You could be going on forever and ever. A bookstore role, something which is steady, something which is always there for you. It's something that you can rely on. You can't rely on the idea that you one day might get in. Statistically, you probably could, but you're always going to be up against the same numbers each time. The numbers of people entering and going up against you aren't going down. At the end, mentally giving up, you will eventually hit a limit where all those rejections start to get to you. Really worried about Yaguchi and the fact that he really wouldn't pull through. I feel better now that we've hit the end of the episode, but it was really concerning. Even he was struggling initially to even come up with an idea on the theme. How would you take nakedness? How are you going to take a life model? How are you going to produce a piece that would stand out during the second exam when very barely few people get cold again? And I can imagine you're right down to the people who go through. Scary numbers for the people who actually get through the exam. Feel it's a bit bad that none of the invigilators for the exam think that this guy needs a doctor, and the fact that he ends up sleeping. Nobody thinks to maybe wake him up, check that he's okay, he hasn't passed out or something. But sadly, it ends up resulting in a lot of wasted time. I did predict that something like this would occur. I'm happy that they're following it through, but they're also making it so it's not a be-all and end-all. He is gonna fight his way back. In some of the situations where we see something bad happen and the team or the person we see ends up having to sit it out or end up missing out, I'm glad that they show this, and the fact that he does start to try and not give up in a sense. He tries to still make something of the time that he's got left. But he does state that having a little nap actually helped him in a sense. The nap helped the headache feel a little bit better when he woke up, just a tiny bit, enough to allow him to get a base down or do something at the very most. But I do believe that it really is the tiredness, the exhaustion, the eye strain, all piling up on him. It just sounds like stress in general. How do we deal with the fact that he's got wasted time? And sure, he is used to always being behind people and trying to claw his way back, but now he really is behind everybody once again. He doesn't have his rest of his life in this. The exam is only 3 days long. We also see Oba actually starts to write Yaguchi off for the first year attempt. She even says, well, he's young, first year maybe not going to happen. She gets interrupted by this point, but she too was also about to write him off, when Yaguchi, however, shows that he really hasn't given up. He's able to send a few ideas across, like this is what it looks like currently. He could technically use this in his sketchbook. We do know that this time around, the component of the exam as well is to produce a sketchbook alongside your final piece. He could technically put that in there. Gathering ideas here for his sketchbook. He's got a few bits and pieces that could technically go in there. But it's also quite nice that Oba tells him that you've got a pretty weak idea going on and maybe you should change it and use a secret weapon, which I like. He's getting a few nudges and a few hints of, you haven't given up. I'm going to give you some guidance. You could try this. You could try that. I like this. It's a new way of looking at the situation. And I do think Yaguchi looks absolutely adorable in glasses. He definitely leveled up for me. I like the look. I think it looks nice. He really now looks like a proper art student. And the stereotypical art student with the hat, the glasses, long coat. Really like that look. I think it looks really good on him. It suits him. I do want to know, though, where did he get the glasses? I don't think we've ever seen him wearing them. And there's no mention of him borrowing them from a family friend or something. I don't know where he got the glasses from initially. Combating this headache by wearing the patches and having pain relief of some sort, which is good. We do get a cool little insight that Takahashi is actually a Pokemon nerd. That's me. That is so me. He is even more like me than I thought. And I love the fact that he goes, I'm going to be playing this after this exam and just sleep. This is his own little way. It's weird, but it's his own little way of trying to encourage Yaguchi. You could do whatever you want after the exam if you're going to make it count. Today is the time. Catch up. Today is the time. You need to get fired up. I want to believe that's his own little way of saying, I don't actually like you, but I also want you to do well. I don't want to see you fail. I like you, but I don't like you backer. He's doing a whole Tsundere thing. The advice I really like from the episode is actually the second bit of Oba advice we get. And that is to look at the other people's answers. Look at the other answers and see what they've come up with. See what other people have done. To see how far out your idea is. And I like it because it's actually a reality slap to the face to Yaguchi, who believed he was really behind. Well, actually, no. That everybody else around you has got a base. There's not a lot of drawing going on, and ignoring Takahashi, who his work is gorgeous, everyone around him basically at the same point. He's just got a little bit where he hasn't thought it through as much, and obviously he's doing a lot of toing and throwing and changing his answer. I'm not quite sure what he's going with. He's got no real plan. It gives him a little bit of a confidence to perhaps see that it's not too late to change your answer. It's never too late to maybe add something or try and change your perspective on something. I love the glimpse of the Takahashi work. That work is absolutely gorgeous. And the fact that he did it in one day as well. That is insane. He literally looked at her, had an image already in his head, and he's gone straight for it to make it work. I like this. I love the shape, the colour, the tone, everything. I love the lighting as well. It's beautiful. How is Yaguchi going to get ahead? He is down at the moment. He has no sketchbook work just yet either. Well, he's going to hope that theme and the portrayal end up going hand in hand. So he's going to use 2 days to do what initially people would do, have 1 day for one and 1 day for the other. He's going to try and catch up by doing both at the same time. I also found it quite interesting from the Good Mythical Morning show that the art tutor for them said that the female form is actually simpler and easier to draw than the male form. I do wonder as well if the art school knows this and they've produced a female model. A lot of classical paintings have female models, and the whole idea of art nude as well. A lot of those forms are mainly for females, but there are some male art nude models I even know, and there's poses which are very different. Yaguchi realizing that he can't finish at the rate that he's going. It also feels like we're mimicking a lot of the themes and the twists and turns that we've had throughout the season as a whole as well. There was points when he realised that he couldn't continue as he was, or there was points when perhaps he realised that he needed to look at things in a different light and he always thought people were ahead when he actually needs to look. I feel like we're slowly mimicking a lot of what he's already gone through in the exam as well. He ends up getting very resourceful. He realises that he needs to change and he gets resourceful with it. The idea of using the texture of the canvas to actually mimic the skin, use what you've already got, and And I like this because it's the idea of self as well, that you're using the self of the canvas. He tries to explain the idea of doing a nude or a painting by reduction, and he's going to put in the bits and pieces where I think a lot of it's supposed to hint. Sadly, gone through at quite a quick pace. It's really, really fast. I would have liked this a little bit slowed down because what we're dealing with here is quite an interesting art technique. It's done at such a speed that you would be forgiven for not quite getting what he's trying to do. I also think that he's now handling colour quite nicely, getting some nice tones down, even though the piece I can imagine is going to look very different by the time he gets to it. The brief lunch interlude is a nice chance to catch up with some of our characters. Maki starts to talk again about the idea of how the exam really should proceed. Even if you had lost some time and you were trying to catch up, but you could do some catch-ups, that sometimes mistakes can be made when you're trying to cut corners to try and catch up. Subtly telling us that Maki actually cares about Yaguchi, about a friend, or she cares about him as an artist, that she really doesn't want to see him fail. It's just a nice little build on her as a character. However, Yaguchi's lunch goes a little bit more eventful as we have Takashi choking on some food. But it gets very nostalgic for Yaguchi and he starts to think about Mori. And Mori was the character we saw right at the start. She's a big inspiration for Yaguchi, somebody who he literally was so inspired and jaw-dropped by her artwork that he too was moved to try art. I do wonder if Takahashi is related to Mori. Maybe there's a distant relation. They do look very similar. I can see why you might mistake one for the other. This now leads us into the slow build and run up to the ending. Maybe jump into madness completely, looking at the inspirations that everyone around you has led to. So we've had the idea of prayer, that Mori believed that art was always a prayer. A lot of that work influenced Yaguchi, and that's the idea of looking at yourself as well. We also get a flashback to when he was doing his own art nude modelling. Yaguchi feels like he has been neglecting his surroundings. That then leads us to scaring everybody in the exam room who is near him, the exam invigilators, by pouring turpentine into his sketchbook. Has Yaguchi finally hit madness? Has he finally snapped? Has he finally just run off the edge? Is he about to cut off a bit of his ear and he's going to go full Vincent van Gogh on us? Perhaps, maybe, who knows? Has he actually got a plan? Because this feels like it might be leading somewhere quite interesting. Has he perhaps figured something out that he is going to end up really pulling out all the stops in the next chunk of the exam? He was initially worried that his art was too simple for the exam, which has now also led to this attack on the art book. But it's also interesting because the art book is still a component of the exam. He's focusing his work on a sketchbook, whether he's going to start even using the sketchbook to knock himself into an idea. I don't think it's bad. I did do a little quick research on what exactly turpentine does, and it's one of those things where you would add it to paint to speed up drying time. And I don't know if this has got anything to do with it. I feel like he hasn't hit madness and there's actually going to be method to the madness. Maybe he's going to try and also get the sketchbook done at the same time. I don't think that him pouring the turpentine into the art book was done for nothing. I think he's actually figured something out. I think he's onto something. It is also worrying because turpentine, if you mishandle it or you use a lot of it, as he's doing right in front of his face, it causes headaches if you're not doing it in a good environment, if you're not fuming. Obviously, these guys are painting. There's paint fumes everywhere, but I do hope they've got a lot of good ventilation going on because Yaguchi's headache is just going to get worse. I had a lot more to say this episode and I hope I haven't rambled on. I found this episode quite fascinating because it took a lot of twists and a lot of turns, and his artwork right now doesn't inspire me. It's an okay piece. I know it's going to get kicked up a notch. I know something completely crazy is about to happen, and I do wonder as well if they're going to do blue. I feel like if I don't get a blue piece at some point, I don't get him suddenly sloshing blue all over this painting. Do I think that he's going to pass? I am not entirely convinced. Maybe get an honourable mention, maybe? As I was about to cut off you guys, there are 12 episodes. There are officially 12 episodes of Blue Period. My anime list has finally done the thing that I've been waiting for all season. I don't understand what they gained by keeping the episode count a mystery to everybody. There are 12 episodes. Next week's episode is the final. So are they going to be mean and cut it off and not tell us if he gets in? And I've also just reread the actual blurb they've got on my anime list. And it's in hopes of securing one of the 5 prestigious spots. So there you go. I will see you for the last ever episode of Blue Period next week. This is the penultimate episode, guys. That's it. Next week is over. It feels really rushed. I was expecting them to take some time to end the exam. I guess we find out if he passed or not next week. I will see you then, guys, for the final episode. Bye-bye.